Welcome, everybody, to the Town of Orleans Select Board meeting of Wednesday, January 21st, 2026. We're here in the beautiful Nauset Meeting Room at Town Hall. I'm your chair, Kevin Galligan. With me around the table from my right is Meph Runyon, Select Board Member Michael Herman, Andrew Shaw-Reed, and Executive Assistant Staff Molly Bates, and Laura St. John Dupuis. I'm not sure where our town manager or assistant are, but we will proceed.
One's online.
Mark's zooming in.
I'm here online with you.
Oh, okay. Mark, I didn't see. Welcome. And
Thank you.
Mark Matheson is arriving now. Welcome, everybody, and welcome everyone in the room. Happy to have you. So I'll call our meeting to order. For those that might wish to join on Zoom, the login information is on the top of our agenda, as well as a dial-in number by phone. We welcome any and all participation. Michael, would you read the preamble, please?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We acknowledge with respect that we are inhabiting the traditional lands of the Wampanoag peoples who have always existed here. We value their roles as past, present, and future guardians of this land.
Thank you. Next item, announcements. Any announcements from board members or staff? I'll just say one that I've heard of, and again, it's only Wednesday, so a lot can happen between now and Sunday night. But folks are anticipating a little snowstorm. So the town will be, I'm sure, in good shape, but look for messages, notices on Facebook, Orleans Police Department, and Fire Rescue. Keep everybody safe and secure. All right, public comment. As folks know, 30 minutes, 3 minutes per speaker. Anyone here for public comment? Come on, guys. I see frequent flyers and no one's coming up for public comment. Anyone on Zoom for public comment?
No hands raised?
All right, thank you, Peggy. We'll move to close public comment, move on to, we have one board or committee interview and appointment. That is Dick Hartman. Welcome. Dick, tell us a little bit about why you'd like to serve on the EDC.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. Over the course of time, I've served on the Planning Board, the Board of Water Sewer Commissioners, the Wastewater Management Advisory Committee, and through those, the accomplishments of the town over that time, it was the building of the treatment plant, then the sewers, which enabled the Planning Board to change zoning to address housing. And from there, once the housing really got started, there was the Planning Board, it prompted the Planning Board to look into economic development. They got the economic development plan prepared and done, of which this committee was kind of a result of to facilitate the goals and actions of that committee. So what I see happening is kind of, this committee is the genesis of some of the other work that I've been involved in over the years. And I see pretty interesting stuff going on. The data dashboard is for trends and moving forward, looking at things moving forward, I think is pretty interesting, something that's new. The involvement in the cultural comprehensive plan, connecting arts, culture, and history with, moving forward, I think is a pretty exciting thing. There's the involvement in the branding, and there's a lot going on. I think that is pretty interesting stuff that I kind of miss being involved in, So, not the least of which I see it on the FinCom agenda tonight. So I have more time than I had when I was serving on all three boards simultaneously. And I think that it would, if you'll have me, it would be a neat thing to do.
Well, that is the question. Board members, what do we think? Any questions for Dick?
I don't have any questions for Dick. I know him pretty well, and he certainly has my support.
Absolutely.
I've had the pleasure of serving with Dick on the planning board for years, and I told him he had a few minutes to back out. So otherwise, we really want him.
Good. Somebody want to make this happen?
Sure. I would like to make a motion, Mr. Chair. Let me get to the page. My computer, you want to do it, you get the.
Sure. Oops, thank you. I move that we appoint Richard Hartman to the Economic Development Committee as a regular member with a term ending 6/30/28.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Dick, you know the process. You'll get a note
Yep.
through
Great.
Molly.
Right,
The
thanks,
town
Bob.
clerk gets sworn in.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we're a little early for the 5:15 PM public hearing. Nate, you want to come up and hit the Rock Harbor update, please?
We don't have John Dugan? Am I looking at the wrong packet?
All good? Andrea?
Yeah, apparently I was, yes, thank you.
I'm on number 7, Rock Harbor update. Welcome, Nate. Mike?
Evening, folks. We have good news on, about the construction project. Everything's on track for substantial completion towards the end of March. In the near future, you should see, there's a little bit of work left with the crane, but I would think in the next probably 3 weeks, you'll start seeing the crane be demobilized and taken off site. We're looking for a window to pour concrete, which would entail, you know, the cap on the offloading dock, the final touches on the offloading dock, the sidewalk. Some wooden piles need to be driven. Ron Collins has still been he's been our top dog dealing with the utility companies. I can say for the first time during this project that the utilities aren't holding us up at this point. So everything's looking good. Punch list stuff after that will be paving once, you know, we have a window. We'll probably wait until the spring and line that up, traffic flow, all that stuff. And we'll have a spring unveiling on track for Memorial Day. The elephant in the room at this point is, you know, I think you all are aware that we had a, you know, a really unfortunate crane accident in early November, which led to the demolition of Young's Fish Market, which is pretty much a landmark down at Rock Harbor. So, you know, it's a significant part of the community that was pretty devastated about that. At this point, I've been in consistent communication with Ron Harrison, who's the owner of the building. It's an interesting situation where, you know, it's town property, but the building is actually owned by a private person. That person's had a contract with the town for decades to run that fish market. He's working with the insurance company right now from the construction company. I had him on the phone last week, and basically it's in his court right now. I let him know that we're ready to sit down, and we're ready to sit down and talk about all opportunities moving forward in terms of hopefully coming up with a solution for the future. But we haven't had that conversation yet. In respect to Ron, he's trying to get his ducks in a row with the insurance company. So we're going to give him the time he needs, but he's well aware that when he's ready to talk, we're ready to sit down.
Good message, Nate.
Yeah.
Really is. Anything to add, Mike?
I don't.
Okay, great. Board members?
Yeah, a couple of questions. Now that the project is nearing completion, was there anything during the whole process that was discovered that was not really anticipated from the beginning? I mean, things on the bottom or along the bulkheads that we weren't?
Yeah, I think the biggest hangup was there was some geotechnical issues with, when you drive these big steel pilings into the ground, you do initial testing in the substrate to see what kind of layers you'll be dealing with, you know, deep in the ground. So these things are being driven 50 feet in the ground, right? There was significant variation in the substrate throughout. When you drive those metal piles, you need to meet a certain testing strength for them to support such a sizable infrastructure. And what we found was due to the variation in the substrate was that based on the length of metal pile that was ordered, due to the borings that we had for testing, there were a substantial amount of those pipes that needed to be lengthened with additional pipe welded on. And there was a lead time on getting that pipe, which led to one of the reasons that we had such a delay last season in completion, but it also didn't help that we had all these utility issues that needed to be addressed. But I'm confident and excited that, we're gonna have a beautiful new harbor down there this spring. And we will iron out the Young's Fish Market thing. And I'm glad that we have such good communication, and Ron's a great guy, so. We'll be back to report, but we're gonna have, some pretty in-depth conversation with Ron to try to figure out where we're at so that, both sides can feel comfortable about where we end up.
Sounds good. Any other?
Okay, but
please.
along this, just for the public's sake, there's not going to be a building on that site this summer, right?
No, I don't think that would be realistic.
Just to make,
Good point, Mev. Any other comments, questions of Nate? Nate, thanks for bird dogging this. I know there was one point you got a call at, I think, 4:15 in the morning when the pile drivers might have started a little too soon.
I got to thank my team, especially Rich. I mean, Rich Waldo's been monumental in just keeping an eye on the budget, making sure we're on track, and making sure we're not getting pushed around. So I have a solid team on this.
Too. And good neighbors there.
Yeah,
We keep them.
thank you to the neighborhood.
Exactly. All right. I think we're happy. All right, thanks, guys. We're still not at 5:15. We got-
Start reading it.
we got-
It'll probably be 5:15 by the time you get to it.
Thank you, Kim. Very good advice. So we'll stick with the 5:15 notice, and I will take a little bit of time to read it very slowly.
Yeah.
So, here in the town of Orleans, we have a shellfish grant transfer public hearing. So I'll read the notice, as it's just approximately 5:15. Town of Orleans Select Board will hold a public hearing in accordance with the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 130, on Wednesday, January 21st, 2026, at 5:15 PM here in the Nauset Meeting Room, Town Hall, 19 School Road, Orleans, to consider the following. Transfer of 1/2 acre grant numbered 75, located in Cape Cod Bay, from Stuart T. Smith to Bethany Gibbons of Orleans, Mass., licensed to expire on December 29th, 2035. Applications can be viewed in the town manager's office during regular business hours. All interested parties are invited to attend. So public meeting's open. In our packet, we've got a memo from Nate Sears, our Natural Resources Manager. Nate, you want to introduce?
Sure. I think this is pretty straightforward tonight. We had a 1/2 acre grant out on Cape Cod Bay that's been relinquished from the previous leaseholder. Bethany Gibbons has been on the wait list for close to 20 years, if not 20 years, 15, so, a long time. She waited her turn. This is great news. Local fisherwoman waited it out, and she's going to end up with a grant on Cape Cod Bay if you vote to allow it. The transferability is just language included to help Division of Marine Fisheries understand that this was an existing 1/2 acre grant, so the permitting will be a little easier.
Great. And in Nate's memo, when we get to it, is proposed motion. Bethany, anything you want to say? You're welcome to chime in. Thanks for waiting all these years. Since this is a public hearing, anyone from the public wish to comment on this? Please, Phil.
Suzanne Phillips, 10 Gesner Road Cottage. I want to speak in favor of Bethany's application. Back in 2020, I was appointed by the town manager in Eastham as a special deputy shellfish constable for a short period of time. One of my duties was to walk out on the flats where their grants were and report back to the shellfish constable. Bethany had and still has a grant out there, and I can tell you that she was often out there working. Her grant was well maintained. She not only followed all the rules, but she also followed all the best practices. I also know from conversations I've had with Bethany and other people over the years that she keeps up with what's going on in the field of aquaculture through membership in the Massachusetts Aquaculture Association and contacts with other farmers in other towns on the Cape. She even attends or zooms in on a number of the town's Shellfish Committee meetings, including our Shellfish Waterways Committee, of course. When I was on the Shellfish Waterways Committee last year, we talked about taking a real hard look at our aquaculture regs, which hadn't been updated for a long time. And we recommended to Nate Sears, the Shellfish Constable, that he form a working group because there was only a couple people on the committee that had shellfish experience, and we wanted to tap into some of the experience and insight of some of our local aquaculture farmers. Bethany was one of the members of the group. I was the titular chair of that committee, mainly means I sent out the notices. But as you know, we met for a year, we had something like 10 meetings. Bethany participated, brought a lot of her insights from her experience and her contacts, made a number of valuable contributions. And the third reason I would say is because, as Nate alluded, this is a local person who grew up in a fishing family. Her father was one of our well-known and well-respected fishermen here in Orleans, and she's basically been carrying on the family tradition, and she has worked as a wild harvester as well as an aquaculturist, and is supporting her two kids and living here in Orleans. And this is exactly the kind of person that we want to support on our working waterfront. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and I want to say that Bethany didn't ask me and didn't know I was going to come and say any of that.
Thank you so much, Phil. Anyone else for public comment? All right, board members, anyone from Zoom want to comment in on this?
No hands raised.
Okay, thanks, Peggy. Folks might want to close public
Move we
hearing.
close the public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, public hearing is closed. Nate, based on your memo, the strong petition we just heard of support, and Bethany, your very complete application, I think we are there.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion to move to approve the transfer of Shellfish Grant Number 75 located in Cape Cod Bay from current licensee Stuart T. Smith to Bethany Gibbons of Orleans, Mass., with said license to expire December 29th, 2035.
Second.
I just have to do one question. Nate, do you know why it's December 29th, not December 31st? Just,
That was when I submitted the memo, so
Okay.
I wanted to,
line up.
yeah, I didn't know when we were gonna get the hearing scheduled for, so I
Okay,
needed some date to start
you
from.
got it. All right, all in favor, board members?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Bethany, congrats. Thank you for waiting, and thank you for what you do.
Yeah.
Folks, if you see Bethany out at Rock Harbor, say hi. All right. Next up, we have item 8. Consider Murphy, Hesse, Toomey, Lehane Law Firm for our open town council position. Karis North, Mike McCarris are coming up to join us, and as they do, I do want to say for folks, if you did see the packet, or even if you didn't, you saw a very brief letter from our past town council, Michael D. Ford. After 40 years, I have to repeat that, 40 years of outstanding service to this town, he is transitioning. He is keeping his practice going, so folks are interested in excellent local service. He's still got a shingle up in there, but Mike, as you noted in his letter, is more than happy to work with new council, transition, as well as be available as special counsel, which he has done, as we know, just recently with the continuation of a public hearing on a certain poll on Ruggles, so he was there. But again, thank you both, Karis and Mike, for being here. You provided some materials in advance. The floor is yours.
Terrific. Thank you very much for having us here. As you know,
Mike has been involved in the town as labor counsel for a while now. I'm Karis North. I'm one of Mike's partners at Murphy Hesse. I have been working with your team doing special counsel work for the past 6 months or so. And so starting to get to understand Orleans a bit. And working with a variety of folks, mostly through the select board or the town manager's office, but and so we're really looking forward to expanding that work and have you as one of our town council clients. Our town council practice is 40-plus years old. We have some clients we've had from the very beginning, including some clients that I currently work with today. And we provide a full range of municipal legal services from land use and planning to governance to litigation, to public records and open meeting law, Board of Health, anything that you name. We have, at least had some passing work with it. And that's one of the things I particularly love about the practice. It is never boring. It is different every day. And I am always learning things. And so it's a great way to do this kind of work. Our proposed lead counsels for Orleans would be myself and my colleague, Kate Connolly. Kate has also been working with the team. She does a lot of land use and would continue to work on the land use side of things. And she, before she came to Murphy Hesse, was at Barnstable, in-house in the town of Barnstable. So she's familiar with the Cape, and she also used to work with your town planner, and so they've continued to work together now. And then on litigation, my partner, Peter Mello, would be handling any litigation that comes out of the town council side, which, right now there isn't any, which is great, but it does happen from time to time. Yes, we're gonna knock on all sorts of wood here. And then, obviously, we have our colleagues doing labor and employment who are just down the hall that we collaborate with anytime we have those kinds of questions. Mike, anything to add on the practice?
Yeah,
generally?
I will just say, first of all, it's a good evening. It's nice to see all of you. As Karis said, I've had the pleasure of working with you now for a few years, along with Kim and Mark and her team and Laura and Molly. So always nice to come down here. It's been, I think, a really good partnership that we've had. And when the opportunity with the good counsel that you had, looking to maybe move on, and us serving as special counsel, thought this was a really good opportunity for us. Karis, her team, and my team work like this in a number of communities, and it's always sort of, I think, a great arrangement. Because oftentimes there are matters that might come up that could start as a labor and employment matter, and I realize, you know what? Actually, this is a matter that you don't want to speak to me. You want to speak to someone who has a lot more expertise in that area, and that's Karis. And the vice versa goes with sometimes a purely town council matter might come up, and then all of a sudden you say, wait a minute, does that touch on sort of the collective bargaining rights? And Karis says, Mike, what do you think about that? So in our firm, we are not a siloed firm. We're very much, as Karis said, we pride ourselves on the number of our clients that we've had. It's relationships that we've had for years and years. I will just say I think Karis and the town council team is great. I think it would be a great addition to the town of Orleans from what I know.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Karis.
Thank you.
And again, I reached out yesterday to Karis just to say, looking forward to your visit. This is, it could be termed a job interview, but let's just call this a visit because we do have, as you noted, the experience of your work. And it's been awesome over the couple of years on labor, but more recently with the regionalization study and intermunicipal agreement stuff we're working on, which is so much fun, Karis, and I'm glad you enjoy it. But board members, any questions of potential future council?
Hi, we haven't met. I'm Matt Runyon. Nice to meet you.
Good evening.
One of the things that I've hoped we've talked here over many years is trying to find ways to get better professional/legal support for our committees, especially the regulatory committees. And I'd love to hear you describe how that support might be delivered, if we,
Absolutely,
that
sure.
way.
I think that's a common concern and question in cities and towns, and so we do a couple of things. We do training. Open meeting law training is key and really important. A lot of boards and committees have people turning over fairly regularly, and folks end up on the committee and haven't really had sort of substantive open meeting law training where they've had the opportunity to ask a lot of questions. We also do some public records training with that as well, some ethics training, if that's needed as well, to sort of supplement and really go beyond the basic training that you take with the state, and really, have a conversation about how meetings are run, what happens if somebody does this, what happens if somebody does that, and almost game out various situations with myself or other members of our team who have been there and advised multiple communities and seen sort of multiple concerns or issues. We then also try to be proactive about the projects that are coming before the particular boards, and are available to work with those boards with either the chair or through the town manager's office to make sure that those boards understand what their role is, what they're trying to do, and then even attend board meetings if necessary to support those boards, answer legal questions during the course of the public hearing or the meeting, answer questions in between public hearings, and really try to keep them prepared so that at the end of the day, whatever determination the board makes is made on a clear, clean record that is procedurally correct and accurate, and then has taken all of the evidence that was provided during the hearing and analyzed that in an appropriate manner. So we really start from sort of the ground and the basics and go all the way through, and then we'll help you work on decisions or review draft decisions. And then, heaven forbid, if there's litigation as a result of a permit or a denial, we'll work with you on that as well. So we really try supporting boards is a big part of what we do. And if you ask me what my calendar is like for the next month, I'm in planning board and zoning board and select board meetings. I'm usually out 2 or 3 nights a week. Or having my team members. So it's just a big part of what we do.
Good, thanks, yeah.
Yeah, I'll just follow up too. I mean, the benefit we've seen, again, all the way back to before COVID is now Zoom does allow, not only for you to be able to come in and help, but we see more public participation, which is good, but we also see more documentation shared, like site plans that used to just be at the table, and people would sit out there and say, what are they looking at? And now you can see them. So it allows that record to be a lot better established and informed, so people make better decisions, so.
And using the town website is also really important. Communities are now putting all of their project files on the website so that you don't have to ask at a meeting, can I get a copy of that? Can I get a copy of that? I just asked for the link to myself, but the community gets to see everything that's in the file, and they become more informed, and they become hopefully more comfortable with the project, or at least they understand the facts much better.
Good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Other questions?
Yeah.
Andrea, please.
Thank you for coming. I love the idea that there's depth and knowledge that we may not have had access to before because things are much more complex in local government. Do you, as a firm, qualify your clients by recommending any ongoing training or education so your lives are simpler with us?
Yeah, so first of all, let me say one thing. When we are your firm, and you might already be getting this, and this kind of goes to the question about how do we support all the individual boards too. One of the things that we do is try to keep our clients educated on a whole host of matters, the changing laws that come into place. And we do that by putting out client alerts pretty regularly. Where we've been working with you, you may already be getting that, certainly on like labor and employment matters, but there are some that are specific, sort of more the town council things. So for instance, we've talked about COVID. We all lived through it. We all saw how town governance has changed, and particularly with the fact that we have people on Zoom now. We didn't have that before. But those rules changed how many times in the course of, geez, it's been 6 years now. And so letting boards know about, hey, what are the laws, what are the updates? So, we're sending out client alerts on key things right there. But again, as Kara said, if there are certain things that clients need in terms of trainings. We routinely do that and come down and give, if you have new board members, let's give them what are their roles and responsibilities. Let's do some conflict of interest training. Let's do some open meeting law changing. Those big areas of governance that are common and are there, yeah, we definitely think that's a good idea. And then for your employees on that side, like training in terms of diversity and harassment, things like that, yeah, we certainly recommend that as a course of action.
Great.
Yeah, and I'll just add that, please ask for training, but I also, if I notice something like, a particular board is struggling with the open meeting law, or the staff is struggling with how to do public records, I will suggest that we do those trainings as well. And again, we can do them on Zoom, we can do them in person, we can do them many ways to make them efficient.
I would just add to, Karis helped us with a certain open meeting law complaint that we jumped on quickly.
Yes.
We promptly responded, thank you, and use that as a little training exercise. But again, Andrea's always been one, particularly related to your question on strong governance, being sure that, we're doing everything we should be. Because what it means is, much better informed
Prevention.
populace, and we make better decisions that way too. So,
The other thing that we do and we offer to our clients, and some love it and some, are kind of, don't really seem to want to take us up on it, is we offer office hours. So once a month, I may be down in Orleans for an afternoon or a morning, and through the manager's office, we'll schedule 15 or half an hour, 15-minute, half an hour appointments to let department heads just come in and ask questions before they become a problem. So we try to be proactive. And, maybe they're waiting, or they have something that's sitting in their back pocket and they just haven't had a chance to write the email yet. They come down and we have a conversation. And sometimes I give advice right there on the spot. Sometimes I need to take it back and do some things. But that's also another way to meet people and see the faces in front of you and sort of build the relationship so they know they're not afraid to ask for the lawyer's help.
point. Any other?
No questions, but Michael, nice to see you
Nice to
again,
see
and
you.
thank you for your help over the past few years. And,
Hope to see all of you at the Connect 362.
Connect 351.
351.
51. I'm going to get the number right one of these days.
Added a few
so.
towns.
I added something.
And Karis, nice to meet you.
Nice to
And,
meet you,
No,
too.
I mean, I hear Kim and Mark's recommendation, and thank you for the information. It was good to meet you.
Thank you.
And folks might have picked up on that, the Connect 351 is the Mass Municipal Association annual conference that begins tomorrow. And there's, I think, 70 or maybe even 170, vendor exhibitors. You may be impressed, but the two sessions I always go to is labor law and the municipal law sessions. It's like, you can never keep up with all the things that are going on in terms of decisions and how they impact us, or, as Kim knows, when I do little reminders about, this or that, that's where it comes from. Because like you said, it's so much fun to learn from each other and also keep us out of trouble. So, board members, go ahead.
Just one follow-up. I just was curious what involvement you usually look to take in a town's FOIA operations,
Responding to public
whether-
records requests?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and whether you also provide advice as to how we might be doing that as efficiently as possible.
Absolutely. So I think one of the things that is always good to have a conversation with is understanding how the town routinely responds to them, and then providing some of our template documents for responses. Usually if we don't hear from the community, everything is working well, but we are certainly happy to come in and take a look and have a conversation with whoever, the record access officers are for the community, make sure that they're, they understand the timeframes. And we have a variety of, as Mike said, municipal client alerts that talk about that, and we have a variety of people in the office, including some of our team that can work with different record access officers to help get those responses out efficiently and timely. Sometimes they're just burdensome, and unfortunately, you can't get reimbursed for all of the time that it ultimately takes. But we've got to figure, we always try to find a way to do it in a way that makes the most sense.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad Matthew asked that, and just so you know, our town clerk's office is the records administrator. She does an awesome job. Kelly Darling, her assistant is Jennifer Higgins, and also supported administratively with Bethany Gibbons. So they just are on top of things. In fact, literally, you can see the timestamp within a minute of Kelly getting something. It's circulated to who should be the considering responsing. Sometimes not always, but she does an awesome job.
That's great.
But I agree with Meth, the burden is like sometimes above and beyond, when in fact they're just trying to get their regular job done. These things can be very burdensome.
It really is, and there's just very little relief that is available to the cities and towns, and all of the lawyers and all of the lawyers in the municipal world collaborate together, and we share through the Mass Municipal Lawyers Association, and we have a listserv, and, we share all sorts of information, and we're always looking for, how do we get past this? What did you do? And they're a very collaborative group, and, we share that information because we know how difficult it is.
And should you ever find yourself in a need where, there is an appeal to the Public Records Division, we have a whole host of attorneys that know that department very well, actually have good relationships with the people that handle those appeals, so we can expertly guide you through that process if you ever have to go that route.
Great.
I just wanted to add, Kevin, that the police department handles their FOIA requests independently of the town's clerk, and I don't know if there's any other channel for those or not in town, but they're burdensome to both departments.
They are, absolutely.
Any other questions?
The only other comment I would make is just add on what you said at the beginning to thank Mike Ford for his 40 years of service. I did have a chance to speak with him, and he did recommend definitely your firm.
Oh, nice.
It's been a pleasure, he said, to work with you guys, and looks forward to working. So.
Yeah, and just on that note, Michael, we will certainly do appropriate, and I would like to see as frequent a recognition of him through the coming months.
Yes.
And I won't give out any secrets, but Kim's working with staff on some special recognition from Mike.
Good.
So keep that a secret.
He's a terrific and very well-respected lawyer. I've enjoyed working with him and collaborating, and he's been very clear that he's been willing to help, special counsel or going forward. So we look forward to that relationship continuing.
Great. So there's one question I've got, and I did ship it to you last night, so no surprises, but I did read in the paper, there was an Idaho case and then a California case where people actually used artificial intelligence to file bogus briefs.
Wow.
And the judges, two of the judges, are not happy. So I asked Karis and Mike, does the firm have an AI policy or guidance relative to, because there's good uses, but there's also really areas that it's not appropriate.
So we are working on some policies, general policies and handbooks, and it will include some AI policies as well. I think it's fairly well understood in the firm that we do not rely on AI for research. To the extent that Westlaw or Lexis includes AI, obviously we use that, but no lawyer is doing their job properly if they are just throwing something into ChatGPT, getting an answer, and not even reading the cases. Even when I have associates do work for me and I get the brief back or the memo, I always ask them for the cases because I want to read them. And that's what lawyering is. You have to actually read those cases, and you have to be up on it, and you cannot rely on a machine to think like a human. And we're very clear at the firm that we do not rely on that, but we do want to understand how AI can help make our work more efficient and be able to use that, but use it judiciously and in the right ways so that we are continuing with our legal and ethical obligations to look at all that stuff with our own eyes and think about it with our own brain and not rely on a machine for that. We would never do that. And do you have anything to add?
Yeah, what I would just say is, we speak at conferences a lot, and we've given speeches on AI in the workplace. It is not going away, it is there. But all of our lawyers, as Kara said, understand that you cannot rely on just AI. I think almost all of us have seen, it's funny to use an example, have seen complaints, I'll use that term loosely, that probably have been written by AI. One particular matter, they actually left created by ChatGPT on the bottom of it. So I had to tell my client, don't worry, they don't have a real lawyer there. But in our structure of our firm, we have a management committee, and we are in the process right now of renewing and updating our employee handbook that we give to all our employees. And an AI policy is one of those policies that is in the development. It has to get approved. Much like you have a board, we have a board ourselves that we're going to approve that and roll that out to everybody. But right now, everyone knows. You can't just use AI.
Appreciate that. So that's the interview. Next item kind of following this is frankly, the pleasure of the board. We certainly have a transition that's underway. I think we have very suitable, capable counsel who we've already had experience working with. I could see, just not trying to put a motion in your lap, but perhaps, a 1 year to kind of figure things out, and then we could evaluate maybe toward the end of the year and look to a longer extension. Just a thought.
Mr. Chair, I move that we appoint, I'm going to mess up the name, your whole firm. I'm afraid to mess up the name. Yeah, Murphy, Hess, Toomey, Lehane, law practices for a 1 year town council position
Through December 31st.
through December 31st, 2026.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Questions? We're good? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you both. Look
Thank you
forward
so
to
much.
working with you.
For the welcome and the trust, and we look forward to working with all of you.
Awesome. We'll see you up in Boston.
Yeah,
Thank you very much. Good seeing everybody again.
tomorrow.
Great. All right, we have another joint public hearing on our agenda, but we are moving along too quickly tonight, you guys. So we can't start the 6 PM joint public hearing until 6 PM. How about we move to item 11, that is the vote to send a letter in support of the Cannabis Control Commission regarding redirecting the positive impact plan resources locally. Michael, I think you kind of picked this up from
Yeah.
Conscom. You want to do a little intro?
Conscom and the ag, sure. I mean, I discussed it last week
Sure.
with the team, and I think you're aware of this. I can make a motion, and then we can discuss it,
Sure.
if that's okay with you,
Please.
Mr. Chair. I would move to send a letter to the Cannabis Control Commission in support of a waiver that would allow the redirection of positive impact plan resources to local initiative program, the Putnam Pantry Project.
So moved. Oops.
Moved and-
Second.
Moved and seconded. So a little
Is there any?
more background.
Yeah, is there anybody who has any questions from last week, or?
I don't.
Okay. Well, it started, the pantry project has been beta tested last summer, and it was, the cannabis dispensaries are required to support PIP to the community. And what they came up with is if they could purchase product from the growers at Putnam Farm, they could then donate it to a food pantry, this one being Lower Cape Outreach Council. And it seemed like a great circular way to work in the community for food insecurity. Once they were in that process, however, they discovered that where they can donate the food became a little tricky, where Orleans, as we know, isn't always considered a community in need. I think we saw that with the library and grants and different things like that. And I think the state has recognized that with the seasonal communities designation now, to show that, yes, while we are different as a community because of our influx of tourists and full-time residents. So they were having to bring the produce to Wareham to get the credit, because Wareham is the closest area that is considered food insecure. And I know it sounds crazy, but, you know, the rules are put in place to make sure that resources are directed to those most in need. There will always be exceptions, and this is one of them. So what we're trying to do with this, Rick Francolini put this together with the growers and at Putnam and the cannabis dispensaries, and they're trying to get a waiver to allow them to be able to distribute the food locally to our food pantries. We know Lower Cape Outreach Council runs 9 food pantries in the Lower and Outer Cape, and we would like to see the produce go there. Conservation Commission has heard this. They've written a letter. They are the ones who oversee Putnam Farm, and they asked us to, if the Select Board would consider writing a letter in support of our legislators, Representative Luddy and Senator Sear, to look at this and reach out to the Cannabis Control Commission.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, please.
My frustration, I share the frustration of the group, but I think the letters, and I love the CONSCOM letter of support, but I would like our letter really to emphasize the regional challenge with hunger, to look at school lunch registration, as Mark suggested, and also summer feeding that goes on, and statistics among our seniors who are food insecure. I think we ought to beef up some of the data to justify that as a regional need. Unfortunately, our need is as severe as any other town on the Cape, because we're, as a region. I'd like to see more data in our letter.
I see Molly taking notes, so we'll incorporate that in the letter using the CONSCOM guide, beef this up. And again, for anybody that knows and contributes, some folks contribute in cash, some actually do volunteer at Lower Cape Outreach, and we know the need is there.
Well, and we've seen it in the schools
In the
for a long
schools as
time.
well. So this will be great. So I take it in the vote, it didn't say explicitly, you're comfortable if the chair signs on behalf of the board? Okay, that's good. All right, any other discussion on this one? All in favor?
Aye.
We will get that letter out. And Molly, because I'll be away for a couple of days, if you'd like to just use my stamp, please do so. Okay, that's item 11. Mark Reel, Kim is out. I'm sure she's chatting with our new town council, but do you want to cover the vote to call the annual town meeting for Monday, May 11th, 2026, and the annual town election for Tuesday, May 19th? Anything on background on that?
Just your typical annual process of opening up this process for calling the meeting. It's hard to believe we're once again starting this cycle, but I think I'm just going to realize that it's a constant. So,
Yeah. Just wanted to check with you. Okay, please.
Mr. Chair, I would move to call the annual town meeting for Monday, May 11th, 2026, and the annual town election for Tuesday, May 19th, 2026.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. And related to that, Molly, relative to now these being open, and then the next will be the warrant, you've already published on the website kind of key dates of what's coming up leading up to this.
Under the town meeting.
A meeting, perfect. So that kind of relates to the next item, if someone might like to make a motion.
Sure. I would move to open the annual town meeting warrant on Wednesday, January 21st, 2026, and closing the annual town meeting warrant on Monday, March 2nd, 2026.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Kim, we've already, just as you're back, voted on the annual town meeting and the election.
Love it.
We're now on the, as Mark Reel said, can't believe we are back to annual town meeting. It seems like it's never ending, but that's the motion on the table. Anything you might want to add on the?
Can't
annual
wait.
town meeting? Can't wait. All
It was
right.
tomorrow. I don't know. Excited.
On that note, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. All right, since we're on a roll and we still have time, we have a certain consent agenda, and I'd say, Mr. Acting Chair, last week, you moved the agenda really well, including that little consent agenda. We could do the same here. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
Mr. Chair, I would move that we vote to approve the consent agenda as presented in the meeting agenda for tonight.
Second.
I would just add in discussion
Please.
to thank Joe Del Negro for her
Yes.
work on the Cultural District Committee. You would have, I think when we do some of these as a batch, we might miss some of those
Absolutely.
little nuances, so thank you, Joan.
Any other comments? All in favor on the consent agenda?
Aye.
Unanimous. Number 14 is done. I am still trying to use up 2 minutes, folks. Do we dare go to the quarterly review of select board goals? I'm looking at Molly, she's saying do it. All right, so very quickly, I think I sent you guys an email. So again, thanks to everybody who provided input, and for anybody that looked at the packet, the goals were just in the process of getting the update. So once we finish our review today, Molly, you'll get these posted on the website. So these are pretty much hot off the press after contributions that were made by everybody as of this morning. So I'm just, if it's okay with you, hit the highlights. We've kind of noted that our review of policies is still moving forward, so that's in process. Couple of key ones in terms of the AAA bond rating. Again, Darren did some updates, including noting that. If folks hadn't heard, just a few weeks ago, after the ratings call with the bond rating agencies, they did confirm our AAA bond rating. Thank you for everybody that supports that. The long-term capital planning framework, again, Darren filled that out in detail in terms of what's coming up next. Nate gave us an update on Rock Harbor, so don't need to go into that. The next item under infrastructure, we've got a lot of great progress on wastewater going on, as noted. Fire rescue, again, good detail update in terms of where we are right up to the minute on the progress being made there. I will note that we still put in our goals. We are still trying to march toward a May this year annual town meeting warrant article. On the Eldridge Park roadway, I'm really pleased with the progress that both Rich Waldo as well as Calvin Sutton have been making on use of state grant resources on preliminary design options. This is the Eldridge Park roadway bottleneck overcoming. So they are now in the next stage of that design, looking for additional grant support that we're expected in late this winter. That's really great. We've got the regionalization study, we've got the Nauset Regional School Agreement going on, we've got the overall facility assessment that is still coming up. We've got the Governor Prince project that Elizabeth filled this in terms of the Housing Works infrastructure grant that was received, the vote of the Housing Trust of $1.5 million to support the project, and also, I don't know what a PEL is, but a draft PEL has been issued. Anyone know what a PEL stands for? I'm looking at Mike Solitro. This was under Elizabeth's update.
Project eligibility letter.
Okay, thank you, Meph.
Yeah.
Great.
Not that I knew it before 2 seconds ago.
Excellent. It's still working, Meph. One thing we do not have, and this is kind of where we should pause, is item, 5(3), Advance 44 Main. So we did describe this as a board, voted it, and we've not taken any action. So again, this is still a mid-course, review, but
Kevin, if I can,
Please.
because I just watched the Affordable Housing Trust meeting before this, and Elizabeth gave a brief update. She said that her office is reviewing it to be in compliance or to see how it fits with the new bylaw
Okay.
changes that were passed at town meeting.
perfect. So progress on that. Yes, Mark?
Just to back up one.
Sure.
I think on, there was a note in here on looking at the Fair project and 107 Main Street in terms of residences.
Lease ups, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what the Fair project is, but I do have numbers as of last week for 107 Main Street. 10 of the units are occupied.
Oh, nice.
Out of those 10 units, there are 20 people living there. There are 6 children 5 years old and under living there. There are 4 children between 17 years old and 6 years old living there. 2 adults, seniors over 62, 2 that are between 40 and 61, and 6 that are between 18 and 39 years of age. 5 households obviously have dependents, the ones with children in them. Out of the 10 units that are occupied, 5 are people that were Orleans residents. 1 is Brewster, 1 is Harwich, 1 is from Eastham, 1 is from South Dennis, and 1 unit is occupied by somebody that came from Rockgate.
And Elizabeth gave data at the Housing Trust meeting yesterday that affirms that and also provides it for some of the other projects as well.
Fair.
Yeah.
She's got the numbers
Yeah.
from Fair, too.
Those are great demographics, Mark.
Yeah, they are.
Really is showing.
So just, one other thing too, because, obviously we have 14 units there and 4 unoccupied, and there were hundreds and hundreds of people that applied. And one of the things I found out that I didn't realize fully in terms of the vetting process, it was 80% local preference. But what happens is you end up with people that apply and then either end up having increased income, and so they fall out of the pool, or the people that actually put the project together and run the project then have to vet everybody carefully, obviously, as well. So people that have had eviction notices in the past are not considered. People that don't have enough income to actually pay the rent to live there can't be considered. Just like people that make too much money can't be, So there's multiple factors that go into that, so that even though you have hundreds of people applying for 14 units, they don't all get filled at once. So it's a complex process, more so than I think we've kind of understood in the past. But, the numbers are, 9 of the people came from the Cape, out of the 10 that are there.
It's great to see the
9 of
kids.
9 of the units are filled.
Yeah.
But, again, to have 10 kids that are in schools
That
living there
is great to see.
is also a plus for us.
Yeah, Meth.
Just to sort of take that one step further, that data plus the data for the FAIR project, which is out, we need to get that someplace where the public can see it, because if you're watching all the stuff that flies around in social media, the sort of erroneous claims that are being put out there are quite numerous and really wrong.
I know that Elizabeth includes it in her housing
Right.
letter, but maybe we need to just pull reference to it in the town talk this month, since we're drafting.
I'm looking at Amanda. She's coming up to give us her update.
Can we have it statically on the website
Yeah,
with the project?
Town Talk comes out tomorrow, and it will feature this data. And then on the housing page, Elizabeth updates that on a regular basis.
And Meth, where you've gone, and I don't have the time to see it, but I do have a partner who does monitor Facebook, and if anyone sees some misinformation, please let us know. I mean, Mark Real monitors the Town of Orleans Facebook page, Amanda does. We would like to nip these inaccuracies because we have good information to share. We really do, if people are willing to listen and read it. So, good point, Mav. Mark, thanks for that info. And Kim, thanks for the update on 44 Main. So, Release the Locals, good update there on that progress. The Gavigan feasibility analysis underway. Climate Leader, Mark filled this in. And again, despite the town meeting, special town meeting failure, we are going to continue to focus on, climate leadership in our new fire rescue station and beyond. Advancing town meeting solar votes, Mark Real filled out details, and it looks like despite the good news we heard on the Rock Harbor commercial wharf project, we are waiting for notice to proceed from Eversource, right, Mark?
Yeah, in terms of the solar projects, we're in very early stages of notice to proceed from the utility, but then we also have got to go through permitting. So we're months away from, the notice to proceed. But we had a presentation to the Board of Water and Sewer Commissioners today and also updated them. They had some questions around the water treatment plant project and the land clearing that was involved there. It was very informative and answered a lot of their questions. So it is early stages, but we're on track.
Great, thanks, Mark. The next one that doesn't have an update is on our goal 6D, on the plastics reduction. I would basically say it's probably up to me to reach out to the Board of Health. Michael, we've probably want to meet with them on a number of issues.
Yeah.
So if I could just take that and
And Amanda with Community Cares,
There we go.
This week too
Yeah.
on that.
Okay.
So I didn't realize this needed to be updated.
Yeah,
by
that's
us.
okay.
Okay.
So we'll reach out on that. Eldridge Park, again, thank you to everybody involved. We've got RFP moving forward. And again, I have to say, to staff, Kim, your excellent staff, but Tom DeServo is just running with this one. And all the times people have come up and said, what about this? He has listened, he's incorporating everything in the design. So I think we've got a great progress.
Can I add one thing to
Please.
that, too? Because we talk about these all the time, but Tom has submitted a fairly large grant application that he won't hear an answer on soon, but I think recognizing that the search for grant money is ongoing
Exactly.
from multiple sources is worth keeping in mind.
Next item on the Depot Square, again, Mark Reel provided this update. Pretty straightforward. The municipal needs, we've got that covered. And Darren has already recapped in terms of the townwide facility assessment. And the last item is, did we do our goal check? And I'd say we did.
Mr. Chair,
Please.
two items that we kind of went really fast over. Back to I guess it's 1B, the testing of the use of monthly updates by by departments, and Kim's email is fantastic. I would ask you to go to the chairs meeting and consider that they, as chairs, because the Orleans Cultural District already does a monthly update. And if they could consider doing a monthly update about their own progress or things that are going on in their boards and committees, it would help us just adapt that value as a whole entity. And the other is and my personal, since we've been working on this since 2012, the wayfinding thing on what is it, 3D. We don't really, it just refers to a 2026 request, as opposed to what's happening this spring. So an update on that would be fantastic in the future.
So noted. Any other edits? All right. Molly, I think you can finalize and post? Thank you so much. All right, we're a little after 6, folks. Sorry for checking off another one on the agenda. Let's go back to item 10, conduct joint public hearing with the Finance Committee. Is there something I need to read for this one?
No.
Oh, this is in the charter. In this case, the Select Board invites the Finance Committee. And this is the first kicking off our FY '27, fiscal year 2027 town budget. Kim, we've had incredible support from a certain Director of Municipal Finance. Darren, I sent you an email yesterday. I'm sure the board would concur, but the memo you put together was awesome. I hope the Finance Committee all saw it. Really well describing process, the guidance, the guidelines that you use, as well as things to come. So,
And it was in English. Yay. Understandable.
understandable.
Thank you.
All right. Take it away,
All right.
Darren.
Thank you. I'm Darren Tangeman, the Municipal Finance Director for Orleans. I'm going to go through, the budget memo just so the public can hear kind of what you just talked about and we have a good understanding of what the presentation of this first draft of the budget looks like and what the Select Board and Finance Committee should expect. And then I think we'll be open up for some questions so that you can dig in. And then I'll ask you a few questions about how you'd like to proceed with the next two meetings that we have scheduled for the 28th and the 4th in terms of how you'd like to see those organized. So first of all, from the budget, I want to talk about OpenGov real quick because it's not in here, but we did expect to try to have this budget in the OpenGov format for the public. We still do anticipate doing that. There were some complications with getting it published. It's the first iteration of it, so I just want you to know, I assume by early February, we should be able to get that version out there to the public, but right now you have the format that we've had traditionally as a town in the Excel spreadsheet that you've seen. Ready for that. I want to thank Mark and Cedric for assisting, there being a team and getting this budget to the finish line. It wasn't easy, and so we have that now for you. And so the first thing to kind of talk about is that the final budget number for us this year was $56,129,564, which is a $2,585,000 more than the previous year, a 4.8% increase over the last year's revised operating budget. As you know, we provided some guidance to the staff and their submissions of their proposals, as you can see, those were the things we were looking at in terms of managing long-term affordability, and preserving the town's strong financial position. We were reaffirmed for a AAA bond rating in our recent borrowing in December. We want to continue to do that by reflecting strong reserves and conservative budgeting and prudent long-term planning, which I believe this budget demonstrates. Part of the criteria or some of the guidance that we provided to the staff was to come back with budgets that were level service, level staffing expectations with any new full-time equivalent positions, generally discouraged except for emergency unforeseen operational needs. We asked for conservative revenue assumptions and avoidance of one-time revenues for recurring costs, which is the best practice for budgeting, public budgeting and management of inflationary and contractual pressures with existing appropriations where feasible. Capital prioritization focused on safety, regulatory compliance, asset preservation, operational efficiency, and strategic goals of the Select Board, and required submission of operating and capital requests through OpenGov, which we did, with full narratives, cost estimates, and funding sources. Like I said, we will be presenting the budget in that format in a few weeks. Reaffirmation of reserve targets, and the reserves are not to be used for funding reoccurring operations. What you do see is that we have two positions that were requested. As a result of that, we have a Health and Human Services requesting a position, a rental inspector. The funding recommendation from Health and Human Services is a request to implement a rental registration fee in the amount of $250 for short-term rental registration, which anticipates a revenue source of approximately $132,000 from the estimated 529 short-term rentals in Orleans. That should pretty easily cover the position that they're recommending, with a total salary and benefit cost of $116,000. Additionally, the Council on Aging requested an assistant director. And I know this has been discussed quite a bit over time, so this is the formal request. The request placed this position at a grade 12, step 7, which brings the salary cost to $107,000 and benefit cost to $30,000 and a total cost of $137,567 for this requested position. And this would be funded through tax levy. So this is this would be a little bit different. Both of these positions are not reflected in the budget. They're for consideration by the select board in future approval and to be sent on to, obviously, to the finance committee and to town meeting if you so choose. All right. Many of the FY27 budget drivers, town operating costs. Budget reflects continued pressures associated with employee compensation, healthcare insurance, utilities, and contractual services. We are in the implementation year of the collective bargaining agreements that we recently completed last year, and a period of broader economic uncertainty. That's generally some of the big drivers in terms of total town operating costs. Employee compensation, getting to that in more detail. We're dealing with those bargaining agreements being negotiated recently in a very highly competitive labor market, where I would say that, towns, it's so highly competitive that towns are poaching other town employees, and so you really have to do you have to be very competitive in this process, and I think that's reflective of what Orleans is doing in terms of its recruitment and its compensation. Health insurance costs. This is a big one for this year, and health insurance premium rates have not yet been voted by the Cape Cod Municipal Health Group, but there's lots of discussion right now about where they feel those numbers will fall, and right now that prediction is around 15% of an increase. It could be less, but they wanted to make sure that we had that conservative planning number for us. Additionally, we've looked at a similar increase for Orleans Elementary School as well in terms of their health care costs within this budget. And Cape Cod Municipal Health Group has indicated that these projected increases are due to increasing prescription costs, our aging covered population, the expiration of the Affordable Care Act, of subsidies, and rising out-of-pocket costs for individuals, and also a high cost and increasing utilization of GLP-1 medications, which is part of the conversation for the health group right now in terms of how they're going to address that, which could actually bring the cost down from 15%. But we have budgeted 15% as part of this. Retirement, we are predicting, we expect a 10% increase or $297,000 increase in cost of our FY27 proposed retirement costs at $3,246,172. An additional element that we've added to the budgets this year in the select board's initiatives line is $150,000 for economic development. That's a conversation that's been had, obviously, with the select board, and these funds, will be used to help further those goals and objectives along a lot of different lines of effort, including retention and attraction, and grants, and just so many different things that the town can do to increase its economic development and fiscal sustainability. So, then what we should talk about is that we have not yet received the education budget and their assessments. So what we have done is we've placed a 3% planning increase in the budgets for both OES, the Nauset Regional School District, and Cape Cod Technical School, so that we have a planning number that we can use in terms of inflation and their personnel negotiations, their collective bargaining agreements, and their contracts that would, and there are also their health increases that they may see as well. So we have a 3% increase in there for their overall total budget. As I understand it, the town manager spoke to the superintendent, and he is aware, and they are using that within their planning consideration for their budgets as well. So I will now go on to capital budget and capital improvement plan. One thing to talk about here is that we do anticipate, I know there's lots of questions about the capital improvement plan, which we just discussed, was just discussed by the select board in terms of their goals, is that we are going to commence a comprehensive facilities assessment mid-February. I think February 17th is the day that we are planning to kick that off. That will look at every one of our facilities and help us develop a long-term plan, 10-year plan or longer, to address all of those facilities and the aging infrastructure within Orleans. Right now, what we have in this budget, from a buildings and facilities perspective, we'll be looking at a total budget of $1.4 million for building facilities this year, and vehicles and equipment will be about $1.8 million. Free cash for that, I'll push this down a little bit so you can see that. Total of $2.5 million for free cash, and $675,000 from tax levy will be used for that $3.2 million in total capital program. We can get more detail in a little bit about that. Within the capital improvement plan, there are some debt exclusions and recommended debt exclusions for projects this year. That is the fire rescue station design and construction that was just talked about. And we have 2 sewer implementations and monitoring support, which are separated in here. One for $5.5 million and the other for $240,000. First used for debt with debt exclusion, the second with funded through wastewater retained earnings. Okay, and then just to go over free cash, because there's been questions about free cash for the last few months. I just want to give you an understanding of where we believe we're going to be with recertification in February. We anticipate $5.194 million at recertification to be available for May's annual town meeting planning purposes, and we incorporated that into the capital budgeting process. So with that original, we did have the original free cash certification of $2.1 million. We anticipate the release of the 2 reserves for CWMP and dredging that will come back to us, will allow us to recertify at $5.194 million, which will allow us to have those funds for capital and one-time recurring expenses, non-recurring expenses. And then just from a planning summary, free cash used in this projected or this proposed budget is $2.5 million. What was a maximum allowable use under the current reserve policy would be $3.5 million. So we still have a buffer to use, but we haven't used it. The minimum required to retain under the reserve policy is $1.6 million, and remaining anticipated unspent free cash at this point is $2.6 million. So we'd have that in reserve in case of emergencies, along with our general stabilization fund that we have. Using free cash within the adopted reserve policy obviously is using the free cash within our reserve policy, keeping it within the reserve policy allows us to maintain our AAA credit rating, which is what was reaffirmed in December 2025, along with the good conservative budgeting practices that the town has followed. So from a fiscal summary, the FY27 proposed budget is $56,129,564. Capital appropriations this year are $3.230700 for the year, and town anticipates $5.194 million in free cash. Recertifying, after recertifying in February, with an unspent amount of $2.6 million. There are some other elements that I did not bring up, but I'll wait for some questions. There are retained earnings that we have still sitting in Moorings and Rock Harbor Enterprises that have had discussions with Nate, who was just here, about the potential of applying those under articles with town meeting to some requirements, some capital requirements that you'll see in the budget for 28, and so there's a broader discussion about that. Subject to your questions, I can bring up any of the budget for conversation, or I can leave it to Mark or Kim for any additional comments that maybe I didn't make.
And one thing I got to jump in, Darren,
Yeah.
one is, Madam Chair, I was remiss in not
Thank you. I was just going
referring to you.
I'd like to call to order the January 21st, 2026 joint meeting of the Finance Committee with the Select Board. And, I'd like to take this opportunity because I think there's some new faces here that maybe starting at the far end. Alice, could we each introduce ourselves, please?
Alice Thomason.
Want to speak into the microphone, please?
Alice Thomason. I live at 25 Blueberry Island Road.
Please.
I'm Tony Pearl. I live at 11 Pride's Path here in Orleans.
Dick Burdick, 150 Quonset Road.
Nick Athanasiou, 31 Loomis Lane.
Elaine Baird, Mayflower Point.
David Abel, 26 Captain Curtis Way.
Thank you.
And as noted on our agenda, and thanks, Michael, this is a public hearing, so basically call the public hearing on this joint meeting with the Finance Committee on our FY27 budget open. So,
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
Jumped in, I couldn't get a word in edgewise.
I don't think it's actually a public hearing.
Okay.
Well,
Anyway, it's just a joint meeting.
I was
All right.
reminded, so,
It's on the agenda.
It's on the agenda as that, so.
All right.
anyway,
Public meeting.
We don't want any further complaints.
All right.
So I'll defer to you, Elaine. Questions from FinCom
First,
first.
Darren, when will we be getting information about the enterprise funds?
The enterprise funds were incorporated in this, in the budget. Mark, you want to, right, they were in the budget itself, so we did have those.
They're in this budget?
Yeah. Yeah.
They're not in the budget that was in that Excel spreadsheet, so you might want to just go over that in your spreadsheet you just had up there.
Yeah, 1 second. We could pull the,
And as you're doing that, maybe just kind of a look ahead to coming attractions, because this is like
I was
kicking
just
things
gonna-
off.
right.
And might let us know what's coming down the pike, because this is just the beginning. We have a
Yeah.
number of workshops coming.
So this meeting is really to meet the charter requirement to have the budget transmitted to the select board by January 15th. So this is the first viewing of the budget. We have scheduled 2 subsequent budget workshop meetings. One is next week at 3 o'clock, and then I think the following week or 2 weeks later at 3 o'clock. The thought was general overview of where we are with the budget right now in terms of process and that it's balanced, right? Or what decisions might be coming about positions. And then next week, we would get further into the capital budget and the enterprise funds in the same sort of way that we've done tonight. Part of the reason we wanted to break it up is because we wanted to hear back tonight about any individual department heads or division heads that you wanted to hear more from, that we would invite to these future meetings rather than having everyone come. And so we thought, once we went through the operating budget, you'd maybe make a note of questions that you had, or the finance committee would make questions, and then we could go back to those persons, get the answers, and bring them back at the next meeting for the next couple of weeks. So that's sort of where we are process-wise. Because they were unable to switch directly right now from OpenGov into the new system, they're really working off of a hybrid of using the spreadsheets that we used last year, sort of lets that it, so that it looks familiar to you. But the document itself, this has not been updated because it won't be the whole thing hasn't been updated, just the key sheets that we need for our purposes right now. So I know you're seeing it and you love to look at it because it's so beautiful. But we are getting away from that, and we're only using it sort of as placeholder right now. So you'll have more, and we will, and I know Ed's not here, but we are going to recreate the 3 pages that I said that we would. The one sheet that he likes, the summary page of all the expenditures, and then this one will exist, whether or not we use OpenGov or not.
So Tony, you had a question?
No, well, I wanted to thank Darren and Kim for this.
Mark.
Because although I'm used to looking at numbers, I really didn't get very far in this since I just got it when I sat in the room this morning. And I would also, and I don't know whether this is, whether you can do this in municipal government, but I certainly would hope that every budget that I've reviewed has revenue as well as expenses. And mostly, we as a community rely on real estate taxes, clearly. Having lived in a community, a well-known community that is virtually bankrupt except in name only, and the real estate taxes are just through the roof, and I can give you an example of my own. I think that I would like to see management's recommendations of additional fees or revenues that we can think about. Now, so I know there is concern about pricing something so that it's not used or something, but I think if we start thinking about that and put that here, it will elicit a conversation that we need financially, and that's my finance thoughts on this. And but thank you very much for this.
I just want to add, so we are planning to have a meeting that talks specifically about revenue. In that revenue meeting, especially because things are kind of stagnant right now on revenues Cape-wide, right? For a number of reasons, but we also want to talk about grants in that meeting and like actually the specifics, because we do bring in millions of dollars worth of grants here, and I know there's a lot of interest in that. And then the other area I want to put in that meeting is about economic development and why it's important to invest in that so we can help diversify the tax base. And so we're planning on probably first meeting, end of February, early March for that particular meeting, once we get through the expenditure side.
Yeah. For instance, I have no idea if we do better by having the businesses in the town do better. How does the town do better? I don't know that stuff, and I would like to see that. And there are also, grants are fine, but I am very skeptical of grants. They're great if you get them, and we did get one in Rock Harbor, but I think I would like to review stuff that we have a little more control over, and I would like to see those recommendations. And from my point of view, we are the board of directors in that we can review what we do, but they shouldn't come from us.
Kim, could you go and describe to us what you and Mark will be doing at the January 28th and February 4th meeting, so that we know which parts of this budget we'll be going into in more depth there?
Sure. So really, we were going to do operating budget next meeting with departments. So I assume that the request, I'm assuming that you'll want to hear from public safety because people are very interested in that. So I'd invite both Scott and Jeff to attend that meeting. You probably want to hear from Rich about DPW, but maybe you wait for the next meeting because he'll be there for Capital too, that sort of thing. And then the question becomes, do you want to hear from Community Services about the two positions that are being considered, the Assistant Director position and the Inspectional Services position? And if so, if you want to hear more about those, then obviously we'd invite Alex Fitch, and Mark is the head of Community Services, and Judy Wilson to be at the meeting too. So that's we wanted to sort of get a sense of who you'd like to hear from. Those are the ones that I would imagine that you'd want to hear from, but maybe there's other departments that you're interested in, maybe IT, or I don't know. So that would be next meeting, and we could go through this in more detail. You could go home and take a look through this and highlight any areas, like what's that extra 150 that's in the select board budget, and we'll say that's for economic development, and then Amanda can go through the list of things that's in that number. We could do that sort of work at the workshop next week. I think, it's not my show this year, even though it is my show. I usually like to do a little glimpse about the revenues too, just to get everyone to get a sense of where we are. But I do think it needs a little more time on its own this year, because I think this is the first year that a lot of communities are seeing a lot of stagnation. So even though we're having growth, I think people are a little nervous about where we are with those numbers. So I think we should spend some time on that. So for me, I would do operations next week. It doesn't need to take 2 hours. And then the following meeting, I would do capital and enterprise funds, and then somewhere, grants, revenues, fees. And part of the enterprise fund discussion is about fees, because what's been fun for me to watch is have another person come in and look at those enterprise funds and have the same reaction that we've all had the last 2 years, which is they're not sustainable. They're not sustainable, the fees aren't carrying them, they're not, so like Darren has a lot of ideas about that too. And so I think we'll need time to talk about that again in a, in a meeting on its own potentially. So that's sort of my plan. Like, if you have other departments or other questions about operations, let us know.
I think one of the ones we're really interested in is the tech side of it.
Okay?
Peter Van Dyke, I think we, can I speak for us as a group, are concerned about how the technology of Orleans is functioning on a day-by-day basis and looking to the future, how we're planning for the infrastructure of technology around.
So capital-wise?
Capital-wise too, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and you'll see there's a lot of investment in technology this year
Yeah.
in the budget as well, in the operational budget with Peter, and lots of discussion about. This is more of a Mark thing, but where we're heading in terms of IT support in the future. I do want to say just a real quick response to what you'd asked about. I want to make sure everyone knows that we do have balanced enterprise funds that we will discuss in a future date. But as Kim said, there are some concerns in terms of the structural budget deficits, at least with 2 of those budgets in the future. Yeah.
Tony, go ahead.
Well, I understand about the enterprise funds. What I liked about the enterprise funds was that it highlighted what isn't being carried by fees, even though when I go to the transfer station, I feel like I'm paying a lot. But on the other side of it, it doesn't cover the cost at all, and at least that's highlighted. So that's what I liked about the enterprise funds. It wasn't because are they carrying their own? It was because what it taught us about the operation, and as a taxpayer and fee payer, it highlighted stuff. So I thought it was very much of a what's the word I'm looking for? Visibility issue, not a management.
And we're gonna get into enterprise funds. We'll go into it again.
Mark, your hand is up?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what Kim was talking about for next week. What would be good for us to do is actually run through each department's budget using OpenGov and show you what detail is behind that system, because it's going to provide you with very clear answers and details about what is included in each of these line items. And so the workshop really is a place for that, where we can drill down each line and show you what makes up those totals.
Madam Chair.
David?
Hi, just a couple sort of macro questions to make sure I'm understanding how to read this properly. One is on the school assumption. I know you got to make an assumption out of 3%. I see this is 4.8, and I'm just curious as to how realistic that actually is. I think it's 3/4 of it is probably payroll. And I think, you've got similar issues with healthcare and pay at anywhere you've got staff. So I'm curious, A, how realistic is that? And B, I just don't understand at the bottom here where insurance is giving up 15%. At the very end, you've got employee health and Medicare, and it's showing down 12.6. But I think I'm not reading it right. I don't know what that means.
You are reading it right. So I can talk about both of them.
Thank you.
We have no way of actually knowing. Obviously, the benefits and the cost for OES are in our budget. So we've incorporated those costs into their budget line. So we know what that is, but we don't know what their overall operational costs will be. That'll still come in. The school won't have their numbers, probably for another month or 2, right? Realistically, end of March. So when I sent over the guidance to Dr. Brand, it was the same guidance that we gave to the departments, which was try to stay within 3%, right? That's the goal, right? We understand that there's salary constraints, but we have no idea at this moment you know that there's a meeting in 2 weeks where they'll present their budget, so you'll get something that night. And then the conversations, just much like the positions that we didn't put into the budget, that's where the fun begins, which is how much can we afford and how will we fund it, right? But we have no way of knowing until they present their budget. Is that both of them? Did I miss one?
Well, I was just asking how realistic is it, but yeah.
There's no way of knowing. So about health insurance, so I know that looks unusual as a decrease, and you're sort of welcome in a way. The reason it is a reduction, even though it went up 15%, because last year at this time when we were building the budget, we were still negotiating our contracts. So what I had included in the, what I had put in the budget, but it's more than that. What I had budgeted at the time, I had to be as conservative as possible. So we hadn't adopted our new benefit structure of 80-20 to HMOs. And so we were very aggressive in our negotiations, and we switched a number of employees off of PPOs to HMOs with our strategy. And that was very effective. And so, but we budgeted for the other way. And so we got lucky, I'm just going to say that. And that's even though it is 15% though, which is horrible, but it is what it is. But that's why we have a reduction in that line.
Thank you.
Madam Chair? Thank you. I'd like to thank you both, or all three of you, Kim, Mark, and Darren, for this summary. This was great. It really was helpful. And I have a question just to educate me a little bit, if you would, Kim. One of the things that I noticed was a huge amount of variation in the increased salaries for both union and non-union employees. Even within, a department, I noticed a 1% difference in the negotiation. So can you help me understand what criteria is used to make those decisions? And is this, there was some reference to collective bargaining, and then when I just was listening to you, it sounded like you might be negotiating individually with, how does that work? This will help educate me to understand how
So every employee of the town at this point, all the contractual employees of the town are all settled at the same exact COLAs, which was 3% last year. A lot of the contracts then also have a performance amount built in, which is a 2.5%, so that's 5.5%. Some of the contracts for public safety last year did have market rate adjustments that you are now seeing the impact of that in those lines. The other variations in the line sometimes could be whether or not an employee receives longevity or not based upon years of service. So frequently in those lines, there's a number of things. Everything except for health essentially is in the salary lines for employees. And a number of employees can be in the same line. So the most important carryovers is every employee is getting the same amount increase. We made sure that was the goal of our bargaining, was that everyone was going to be compensated in the same way. So everyone got the same percentage increases in the contracts going forward. Sometimes, like you see the position recommendation, when we hire a new employee, we don't know where we're hiring them on the range, right? So we usually budget for the middle, right? That's the best that we can do there. Sometimes you'll see, like, for instance, in the finance department, as a perfect example, that we haven't had that fully staffed in 2.5 years, right? So now you're seeing a dramatic impact in cost related to personnel in there. But that also includes a position that was moved out of HR that's in finance. So sometimes you'll see changes, larger changes like that. What else could make a variant in a line?
Maybe someone retires,
Yeah,
you hire someone at a lower number.
Retirement, turnover. I mean, we're getting pretty close. Both, I mean, what you're going to notice, and this is a product actually of being successful, we're going to have less and less, we're going to see increased costs in police and fire because we're hiring people. We're filling those jobs for the first time. So when you see actuals from the last couple of years, you have to remember at one point we had 18 vacancies, right? So like we're doing a very good and aggressive job of filling those spots, but eventually you're going to see the impact.
So, it might be helpful to me to stop in and, or make an appointment to see either Darren or Mark, because I'm not understanding still. We have a line that references longevity, but you're saying it's built into, that. In addition, it's also built into the salary?
It can be.
It could be 2
It can be, or it could be a position that's vacant, that's gonna be filled. You have to basically budget for the possibility.
Right.
If the turnover in a position. One of the things that we changed, we also changed our policy on, there used to be buyouts lines that we used to do. We only have a small amount now that we need to budget for that because we actually did aggressively buy out time that was on the books from employees. So we were able to bring that down substantially. That was also in the benefits line, so that's one of the other ones that was down. So you can see some changes in some of the lines related to the benefit structure.
But Kim, just so- to help me out again, the criteria that you've identified, you've given a number of things, performance, longevity, those criterion are applied to every employee?
Yes, so we have, so
So
the
s-
union contracts get a COLA and a step.
So
And
the,
that COLA and step is 3% COLA and a 2.5% step. So that's 5.5 unless they've hit the end of their mark. The other employees who have individual employment contracts, they have received 3% and then they get an evaluation that is then tied, successful evaluation is tied to up to 2.5%. Then you have a collection of employees who are not in any contract at all, and they are receiving COLA and 2.5% so that they are receiving the same as the union contracts. The public safety departments, the fire chief, the police chief, and myself, and then a few of the employees and the managers, after we did a class and comp study, received market rate adjustments for the first year of the contract. So but going forward for the next 2 years, everyone is receiving the same.
and the market rate adjustments are based on comparables in surrounding towns, or how?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's what I kind of guessed, but.
Right. But that's really only for
performance.
certain areas, usually management areas.
And performance is based on performance reviews?
Yep, we have a new evaluation system that we just adopted, that we are through our first year of using this new system.
That's helpful, thanks.
Dick?
Just a question, did you say that unfilled positions are not budgeted?
No, they are budgeted. What I was saying is if we use actuals from previous years, you won't see anything there, right? So it might look like a big bump now that it's filled. You know, to the tune of $100,000 a position, right? That's a big fill, right?
Yeah.
Madam Chair, can I go back to the select
please.
board? Andrew, go ahead.
A request for workshops, upcoming workshops, since you were asking. Can we at some point talk in a one-to-one correspondence, because the select board had particular goals, and we've, as a community, adopted how, planning and about investment around economic development, housing, and green communities. And it would be really cool to call out in our budgets where, or anticipated investment, like broadband was called out in the economic development plan. It's been on our radar for years. Just to look at things that where those are in the 27 budget and how they correlate with the success of adoption of voted-on plans. That's a great idea.
Well, and as you know, it's, and Andrea won't mind, it's not an original idea, because we've seen in Eastham,
Yeah.
they actually build their town meeting warrant, not only with the warrant articles, but at the back, they show how those tie out to their strategic plan.
I think that that is absolutely fabulous and what people are looking for,
We
right?
want to document that we're walking the walk.
Exactly.
Right.
The money is following our planning. The other request I have is for, if there are any, because Dave beat me to the question about the schools, if there are any wild card kind of unknown threats out there, because the schools are out there in terms of, we don't have that information, but you as professionals anticipating what you see, we're all aware of national challenges, just things that we might be briefed about in the workshops that we can't control.
Okay.
Well, I just share, only because I listened to the tape of your meeting last week, Mark Matheson did give you a heads up on some of the data they're scrubbing through, including significant cost of special needs.
Yes.
So,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, these are uncontrollables,
Right.
folks, and yet they are at the core of who we are.
Right, service provider.
Michael, you had your hand up.
No, I was just
you got it.
responding to Alice's,
Okay.
but I think you got your answer from Kim. You made sense. I thought it was my confusion originally, not is now, but was the different classifications of people being union, non-union.
Yeah, no, I totally understand union, non-union, but what I was noticing even within that, there could be a variation of like 12%. I mean, somebody could be 3% and somebody could be almost 17%. And I was thinking, in the world that I came from, where I did this kind of budgeting and contract work, that didn't happen, that kind of variation. This idea of adjusting for market rate is also not something that happens in the school systems.
And it's not just two, union, non-union. There's 4 to 5 different categories.
Yeah,
that you gotta look
that
at.
makes sense, yeah.
And, yeah, there's and there's
Complex.
variation in there.
Yeah.
I mean, on the sheet, so.
I was looking for equity, so as long as you all feel there's equity and the employees are happy with equity, but it doesn't, when you look at just the percentage change, a person who wasn't schooled as we just became would think there was a lot of inequity.
I think that's where we gotta go in the detail, in the budget workshops.
Any other board member questions? Matt?
I've got a few, and some of them are just longstanding sort of calculations that I would love to see this year, since we're just at the beginning, that maybe we could do. And I'll start with the definitive calculation of how much of this budget is personnel-based. Those costs are spread in so many different categories, and we have the schools that are part of that too. I mean, people throw out this 70% figure, which is what I've just by what other people have said, have used, but I've never seen that number actually calculated. And then, once calculated, it would be a nice number to track over time to see what happens in that ratio. The other thing is, and this is sort of the same category, the $56 million operating budget that we use as a number, you can't compare that to anybody else. I mean, every town has got its own accounting approach to these. Do they include the schools? Do they not include the schools? Do they do enterprise funds? I mean, there's all ways in which they vary. And it would be nice, maybe not this year, but to think about finding a way that we could come to a number that we could use to compare ourselves to neighboring towns that are similar in size and operation. Then just a little question. Have we reached the year yet where the cannabis revenue can be recognized in the budget? So there is a cannabis number in this budget?
Yeah.
And that'll come when we get to revenues in a couple of meetings, right?
And I could take this offline, but there's two sort of committee budget items that have some track record, one with the Transportation and Bikeways Committee and the other with the Cultural District Committee. And that money has been a line item one year and then sort of folded into a bigger budget in another year, so that people didn't really know what was there for them. I would love to have those kinds of items have their own line item, so that the people know what is available to them over the course of the year.
So the confusion there is, we moved the special articles for boards and committees into one line for boards and committees under the select board's budget. That line in the Munis system, title was not changed, and it continued to say employee recognition, which is what created all the confusion when it was always boards and committees. And so unfortunately, we were giving the committees the wrong guidance. So I did get a request, though, about whether some of it should belong in the recreation department, and we're gonna take a look at that this year so that they can have a better access to how much they have on hand, so that it doesn't seem as foreign. But,
I guess.
Breaking out-
If it's not in the accounting system, at least having those committees be totally
Correct.
aware.
Correct.
And maybe
Because-
get a
right,
report.
because their
there.
funding never reduced, it just moved, and so I think that created some of the confusion, like we took it because it's an annual operating expense.
Especially when they want to spend it.
Mark, anything? The only thing I would say, Kim, back to inviting department heads, you mentioned public safety. When Chief Deering comes in, I really want to ask him, when do we see OT start to drop? I mean, the goal of being at full complement was to eventually see this overtime drop. And I know he's in training, I know there are issues, but we've got to find a way. It is killing us. That OT department in fire, if you look at the line item, it's, yeah. Of all the things I reviewed, that jumped out at me. I mean, the others were so explainable, or I was pleased to see, like the 150,000 on economic development, because we can finally actually say to businesses, we're giving them, hopefully, something meaningful to actually make changes in their businesses, whether they be facade or, whatever, but things they would otherwise not be able to do as a normal operating business. So I can see that economic development line being really wonderful for us to work on once the budget's approved. So we have a little ways to go between now and then, but the OT on fire is my
And Alice?
Thanks, Elaine. I had just two questions, additional questions. One was around the potential for the position for the short-term rentals. Hadn't we had a discussion that we were going to look to partner with another town regarding that? Didn't I hear that discussion?
Yeah.
We were looking at potentially partnering with another town, since that wasn't really a full-time, it wasn't thought of as being necessary to be a full-time position, or am I making this up?
I don't know for short-term rentals. Part of the issue that we were waiting to hear from is what department it belonged in potentially, between whether it was going to be a building issue, a fire issue, or a health and safety issue. That was a lot of the discussion last year, and how towns were actually, where they were putting them in their organizations. You might be thinking of that we sent the regulation to the Board of Health, and we were waiting for direction there, and that we weren't sure how quickly in the first 6 months people would come online, right? We were giving a pause.
I may have heard that from the wrong source, but I was sure I had heard that, and I think that you're on the right track with the Board of Health, because, we want to be sure that people are renting their homes with the appropriate number of.
Maybe you're thinking
people
of
in.
the Lease to Locals program, because that is shared with the town of Eastham.
Yeah, no, but
And-
it's fine. I mean,
Or the
if it-
shared energy position that we have, which is another one.
No, I think it was this, because maybe I read it in the paper that in the Chronicle, that there was some discussion that a lot of towns are thinking this needs to happen. Would there be an opportunity to join together to hire somebody who could get,
I think the other line, I'm looking at Meth because he's probably chomping to talk about, is I think this one's clearly aligned with the short-term rental responsibilities. The commercial code issues inspection is absolutely necessary. But I think, Meth brings us, we have compliance gaps. And that's where I believe a regional, circuit rider like Conscom does, believe it or not, the state provides one entity for southeastern Mass that looks at all the Conscom projects, to be sure that signage is right, compliance with, wetland protection. But from a standpoint of region, for compliance on signs, on lighting, on noise, we have more work to do on that. I keep looking at MEF because this is really a need that no one looks after.
Yeah.
We're on a bad call coming in saying someone's barking about a problem, then we respond. We're not proactive about it, and that's why I think a regional service might be in
That's
order.
good. And, in terms of the short-term rental piece, I think it also gets to the equity issue.
Totally.
Right, totally. The one other thing that I was going to ask about, well, we'll skip that. Can come back.
Aaron
Yeah,
was
hi,
gonna-
Mark.
If I could respond, if you can, in the board packet, there is the two personnel justification forms, where each department has provided very detailed time-to-task analysis on how much those positions would require and why they're looking at full-time positions. Specific to the position you're talking about, they did the time-to-task analysis for 529 active short-term rental listings in the town of Orleans, and they determined that there would be almost 3,174 hours that would need to be in a normal, obviously a normal full-time position is 2080, so it's the position that they're asking for is actually below what they truly need, and they to compensate for that.
That's really helpful, Darren, thanks, yeah. Good to know that. I was just going to piggyback, the second thing, if I could, Mark, that I was going to say was to piggyback on Meff's comment in regards to, the request for a line item for the Transportation and Bikeways Committee in particular. That's been a long-standing request, even formally in writing requested to the previous town manager and subsequent. Primarily, it's to be able to be a little bit nimble with safety issues that come up that need immediate attention, and there's no revenue earmarked. So the request was to have a line item within either the DPW budget or the police budget, and the committee had thought, if I'm remembering correctly, it made sense to be in DPW to have a line item. Their request had been for $20,000, just so they could quickly put up the speeding sign or whatever. So please consider that.
I'm pretty sure we moved that into Rich's budget last year.
Yeah. Mark?
I was just going to say,
Line item for that.
I understand I might not be entirely accurate with the numbers, but I think the town of Eastham is looking to hire for the position of rental inspector. But I think perhaps some of the discussion that needs to happen around this position is that they're looking at this from the perspective of the building department and all rentals. And there are a significant number of rentals in the town of Eastham, short-term rentals and whatnot, the cottage colonies that they have and all that. But they're looking at it in terms of minimum 2,000 hours, probably 3,000 hours. And they're looking at safety items, like, you're renting a cottage, is the railing on the deck appropriate? So they're looking to find somebody that's perhaps a retired building inspector or someone that has a construction supervisor's license or, is a trained professional to fill that position. So it's not just a clerical thing, it's like, and it's not just, the fire department can go and look at whether you have smoke detectors in the appropriate places and the appropriate number. So, and we have talked here about whether we want rental inspections and the fee for rentals to cover just short-term rentals or all rentals, year-round rentals. So, I think this will generate a lot more discussion, especially if, we're looking at potentially changes in our downtown overlay district where the incentive was for year-round rental properties for people that are making 200% AMI, so that they're attainable for working families, that they are deed restricted to year-round. So again, do you not inspect those? As opposed to just a short-term rental that's being rented for, a week at a time or a weekend at a time or whatever. So that's gonna be part of the discussion. I think what we're looking at with the Board of Health was to get something in place to get a handle on the short-term rentals initially, and then move forward from there.
Thank you.
Good point. Yeah. David?
Just a note, that'd be more than 2 inspections a day anyway, if you just do the short term, so it's a big job. The question I have is, just because I'm woefully uneducated about the long and short-term debt with sewer, so maybe if you could address that later when we have one of the sessions, just to educate. Thank you.
Anything else?
Anybody else?
This is a public hearing. Anyone from the public wish to come on up?
He's got his bottle to defend himself. So, Lynn Bruneau, Seacrest Drive. So I sent to Darren and Kevin and Kim and Mark what I wrote up, which is 4.5 pages. I didn't have access, though, to the budget memo for some reason.
This
Maybe
came
it
out-
came later.
Came out yesterday.
So I didn't go back and look, and I didn't have access to the summary page, so maybe it could have been longer, but I'm not going to drain my swamp. But what I talked to Darren about before tonight's meeting was maybe sit down with him briefly sometime, maybe before next week's meeting, and highlight some of the areas that could be helped to drive the dialogue. For example, even things like what guidance was given to departments about how to budget electricity high or low than last year. And there were some confusing things too, because in some of the numbers for fiscal '25 that were included, it was actuals. And sometimes it was the budget. And the actuals are a good guide for things like electricity, because then you really know. And so there were some unusual things. So anyway, I'm not going to belabor this, but I will sit down with Darren and Cedric, or appropriate for brief, to figure out how best to leverage all the time I spent over the weekend on some of this. There's some questions, though, too. For example, the child care program, where it says we only spent $300 in fiscal '25. I'm not sure that's accurate, because I thought it was undersubscribed in '25. And we budgeted $300 for '26, okay, but then we just decided that we're going to expand it from birth through age 4 and also make it a year-round program. So budgeting $300 may not actually be enough. So there's those specific questions like that, but thank you very much.
Thank you as always, Lynn.
If I can, Mr. Chair,
Please.
I think Mark can actually speak to both. Well, I just want to say that after the proposals were submitted, Mark and I sat down with each one of the departments. We reviewed the electrical, and so Mark being kind of our electric expert for the town and dealing with that, he did have a conversation with them. And I also want to talk about the child care voucher program then Mark can probably provide comments on both of those, because I think we do have answers on that.
Go ahead, Mark, Real.
Mark, yeah.
Yeah, sure. So in terms of the electricity usage, a couple of years ago, there was guidance given to the departments to drastically increase their electricity line items, and the guidance actually was not quite correct, and it created some inflated line items. And so as we went through these budgets, we looked at actuals over the past 3 years. We looked ahead knowing that our electricity rate was going to be remaining flat, as well as taking into account the net metering credits that we are getting for some of these departments. So the adjustments have been down on some of those lines, which has been kind of a readjustment. And then in terms of the child care program, what I think Lynn is referring to is a couple years ago showing that we expended the entire amount. What I'm thinking that may be from was if there was funds transferred out at the end of the year to other line items, it would show as expended that entire line. So even though the funds weren't spent on the program in its entirety, if the funds were transferred out of that line item for other items through end of year transfers, that could be one of the reasons, but we can look further into it.
Yeah, sounds like a little follow-up's needed on that. But back to the electric rate, not just the usage, Mark, we're still in a locked-in, I think it was a 3-year competitive rate through Cape Law Compact?
Yes, and we are, July 1 of '26, we'll start another contract, and the number has gone down very slightly, but we'll call it flat.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just tell you, they, as a buying group for municipalities, because, number one, we are known to pay our bills, and I think the suppliers like our electric load. So we tend to benefit through that procurement. So it's really great that we find other ways to save. Please.
Just
yeah.
one addition to what Mark said, there is a solicitation of interest, Mark, I don't know, for the program that will help us more accurately gauge the cost of it. Mark, if you could elaborate on that, Mark.
So through the last conversations we had about changing the parameters of the early education and care program. We realized that to properly budget for that line, we really need to understand what our anticipated applicants are going to be, right? So I worked with Alex to create, or have her create an expression of interest that is out to the public now. It's been circulated through some of the existing providers and through Facebook and other means, for asking for parents to sign up through that expression of interest so that we have a better understanding of the numbers of children that are out there as we're planning for the budget. So that information is coming in now, and it's going to be very helpful in the next couple of months to fully understand the budgetary needs for that program.
That's great. I see, John Cooper, you're on. Be great to hear if you have any questions as well, or if you've listened in and you're fine.
Thank you. I have listened in. I think my questions will be answered in the workshop. I just wanted to give a different view about grants, however, than was expressed before, because I applaud the talk that we've had of going after grants. And I think we realize that other levels of government have access to revenue capacity that we do not. So I was very good I'm looking forward to that part of our workshop as well. Thanks.
I'm glad you mentioned that too, because Kim did kind of, give an overall number. And I'll just ask you, Kim, I mean, just to date in the current fiscal year we're in, we're over $2.5 million
Oh, definitely.
of grants.
It's,
No,
that's
and-
the thing, which is we've been very successful in receiving a lot of grants the last couple of years. And so we had put out, Amanda had put out some information a couple months back, but I think it's important, especially with all the interest in the federal government and changes right now, to talk about what programs will exist and what might not exist and how does that impact us. I think having that general conversation, that's why I'm saying I think we need a little more time this year to talk about that so people can feel more comfortable with where we are, and we can talk about the details of the grants.
And I kind of ask you not to just label these as grants. I mean, put them in the broader category of other funding sources, outside funding. They can be in the form of grants, they can be in the form of subsidy, they can be in the form of low interest. We take advantage of these because, in fact, these entities that are granting us these or providing us are seeing that we're doing things that are advancing the state goals, whether it be the environment or housing. The $650,000 grant we did get for supporting the demolition at Governor Prince was because we're advancing housing. So, I think, Tony, to your point earlier, grants, we know, come with hooks. And sometimes they're things that you've got to make sure you read the fine print. But we have staff that look out for those for us. So far, so good. All right. We good?
Alice?
Just one more request when we have the workshop. If we could have, thinking about Andrea's comment on the plans, if we could have some specificity on what from the economic development plan that the planning board commissioned and brought forward several years ago, what in that plan will be targeted for this $150,000? I'm thinking about your comment, Kevin, too, because really, if I remember correctly, that plan was looking for more innovation as opposed to just beefing up the retail and food industry that we currently have. I mean, it was very specific of starting to try to move us away from the tourist. So I'd like to see what we've got in mind, if I could.
And to Alice's point, I know you said it was $150,000 for the select board, but actually it's going to be $650,000 when you add in the $500 that you already had. I think it would be really excellent to have a description of what that money will be doing for us in terms of economic development around.
Right, so the 500,000 is the Lisa Locals Housing Initiative.
Okay, got it.
And the 150 is a budgetary request that Amanda will speak to with the list of programs and
Okay.
things that she is going to be bringing forward for this year.
Could we connect those to the plan?
Yep.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Anything else? Then I can entertain a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Okay, and by roll call, John? You have to roll call adjourn? Yes, Alice?
Alice, yes.
Tony?
Yes.
Dick?
Yes.
Elaine, yes.
You all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hey,
Thanks.
Mr. Chair, would you be looking for a motion?
we have just a couple of items, Madam Chair.
You have to turn the page.
Oh, to close the public hearing?
Yes.
Yes, please.
I move we close the public hearing.
Moved and seconded. We're closing the public hearing on the fiscal year 27 budget. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next item, Select Board Liaison Updates.
Oh, no, don't we need to convey the
Oh,
document?
goodness, please
That's
do.
what I would like to do.
Okay, I hear a motion
I
coming.
move that we approve and transmit the fiscal year 27 budget to the Finance Committee as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor of that transmittal, say aye.
We're not approving.
We're approving the transmittal.
Approving the
Transmittal,
transmittal.
as presented.
As presented, yes. All in favor of the transmittal?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
FinCom, you've been transmitted to. Okay, next item, Select Board Liaison Updates. If I could, I'll start over on this side. Mark, do you have any liaisoning?
Not this week, no.
Okay. Mr. Runyon?
I was at several meetings and there's the CONSCOM and Human Service Advisories and zoning ZBA. Nothing happened in those meetings that's of interest for this meeting.
Mr. Herman?
We just had this, I had the CPC, and we voted the final recommendations for, as you guys have all seen, trying to schedule a meeting. Looks like we're gonna possibly, if it's, the chair's able to fit it in, on 2/11, we'll do it with the Select Board, and 2/12 with the Finance Committee.
And Molly, you got that already on the planner?
Yeah.
CPC update from Michael?
Well, you're just, yeah, are you doing it here? Hold on.
2/11.
He's going to run through the projects they've recommended from CPC at the Select Board.
Oh, okay, during the article review, you'll do CPC.
Yeah.
Okay, that
That's no
works.
big deal, and Jennifer is gonna send you something.
Yep.
Anything else?
Community That Cares, should I mention that? We had a follow-up meeting on Community That Cares, and a lot of good input, and we're working together an application to Surfrider, right? That will go forward, so. That's it. That's all I had, I didn't have any other.
Okay, Andrew?
And since last week only Open Space has met, they met this morning, and we have nothing significant to report.
I've just got a couple. One is 4th of July Parade Committee met yesterday. They are gearing up. One thing, I don't know if there's room in Town Talk, or if we might get a little, they asked, because they have open positions, and this is a great time to onboard some new members. They have 3 open positions. 4th of July Parade, and I promised I would mention it, would love to get word out to onboard some new members. And so I said I'd do that. But they are really beginning the progress of shaping the parade, reaching out to vendors. They did get the bagpipers confirmed. That's usually the first that we like to see. They're going through their list of items that might need a little refreshing. They do have a small budget, so they're putting that to use. They're working really excellent with Lieutenant McLaughlin on traffic management. I did mention the gap that we had last year. Do you remember where?
Yeah, that was
First,
long.
the first group was way in front, and we looked back, and the parade was a mile behind us, so they're going to try to work on that. This is the 250-year anniversary of our independence, and they're reaching out to the elementary school to try to develop some creative, fun themes. So they're going through the schools to get a theme, so we should know about that.
Mr. Chair, can I just ask on that question, because I've been wondering town-wide, what's going on for that event? I haven't heard really.
For which event?
The 250th.
Of the federal government?
Well, now I'm
I said
confused.
it that way only
Yeah,
because
yeah, really.
I chatted with Amanda yesterday. Orleans' anniversary is 1717. Yeah. 87.
And I'm just curious, that's all. Elsewhere, it's a big event, but I haven't really heard much in the way of Orleans.
We have a parade.
We have fireworks.
We have fireworks.
Which we have every
They
year.
are going to be fabulous. So, but It has not been on our goals.
Oh, I wasn't even talking about our goals. It might not even be the town doing it.
And there you go. So opportunities for others, cultural folks, artists, community. I'm sure we
Yes.
would welcome anything we could support. Michael, you going to add?
Yeah, I just think I mentioned to you guys, I've seen some communities are starting to do drone shows. I know we're locked in with our vendor already, which is great because it's $250 and I'm sure it's a hard thing, but I know the vendor also does drone shows and I think Tom's gonna look into that as something.
Yeah, no, I saw some numbers come out of that. They were really shocking.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I mean, not shockingly low, shockingly.
Definitely high, yeah, absolutely. And the other suggestion was, that's hopefully sometime we can maybe look at as a board discussing whether we want to ask other towns to participate in the firework display, be it Eastham, be it Brewster, where they are packed on their side. And it's weird, they don't contribute.
Already occurred.
Okay, when did that occur? Because I just asked it last week and it wasn't.
2 years ago, we reached out to both Brewster and Eastham to see if they had any interest in potentially coordinating on a recreation event, since we all were sort of sharing. At the time, they were asking, this is when we were first trying to figure out, before the town committed to funding the fireworks, how we would be able to help support the fireworks. And so we had discussions about certain dollar amounts and how much we would be talking about. And that is basically where it ended, because we decided to fund the show ourselves. So those conversations occur, we could bring them back up again.
Bring them back.
I was the liaison to the 4th of July. I don't remember those conversations. It probably just went over my head somewhere. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. If you guys, I just want to make sure the board discusses it at some point. If we want to, they could be modestly giving $10,000 each. But when you said earlier, we have limited funds, it piques my, let's talk about regional and sharing this, especially on the 250th, if that's something we want to do.
Great. Only other liaison item I've got is today, the Nauset Public School Efficiency and Regionalization Study Group met. We had their first draft of the assessment they did of all 6 facilities. So it goes from Eddy School, Stony Brook, Orleans Elementary, Eastham Elementary, Wellfleet Elementary, and the Nauset Middle. Some interesting findings as far as the state of facilities, the underutilization of the facilities, student and classroom size. Kim was on it. The work of this committee is, when it's finally rolled out, is going to be eye-opening. And I think folks should be prepared for answering questions from the public as to why. Why do we have this square foot and only utilizing this amount? I mean, it's pretty significant. The other thing I'll say, and I complimented all the work that's being done, because the crew that we hired is awesome, including the subs. And there's a engineering outfit from Dartmouth, Mass. Called GGD. They were the sub that does mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire safety. And through their assessment, and I copied Kim on a message I sent to Rich Waldo, there are already 5 deficiencies identified at I say our, because we are responsible for that elementary school building, that are safety and health deficiencies we have to fix now. We can't wait for some capital project. I mean, they are really no-brainers. But thankfully, eyes of expert engineers went in, saw some pretty simple things that just need either an inspection, a valve, a control, or a CO detector. I mean, come on. So, again, I don't want to belabor this, but again, the work we're doing on this regional study, I think will be really
What's their target date for delivery?
end of this year. I think we're probably not going to see results, Kim, until.
End of this fiscal year?
Part of the complication, I think I might have mentioned before, is that the initial demographic information that we got back through the vendor, that they had hired, the data itself was, let's just go with inconclusive. And so they decided on their own, this meeting today was initially supposed to be about the demography.
They switch
They
gears.
switched it to about the building size, but it's very difficult to identify and do projections on the on the Cape and what's happening right now. And a number of towns had raised some, concerns that the numbers didn't seem to make any sense. But again, in all fairness, it's based on a number of variables that are TBD, no one knows. So they have hired a second firm that specializes in school enrollments, and they are doing another pass at the demography. So that is
As well as, I mean, even back to points you made, Mark, about the, changes in demographics through affordable housing. Questions came up on our call today is, how are you getting that data? Are you getting it from sources that are relevant to, and the word we heard was, just pulling a building permit. That does not tell you the population of residents as to whether or not they're going to be school age or, retired, so they're working it. But I also have to say, Kim, you probably recognize, we have a great group. I mean, from Wellfleet to Brewster Participation, we really are all working well together, and it's a good team. So more to follow.
Great.
Future agenda items. Yes, please.
I just wanted to mention, I wasn't able to go to the Shellfish and Waterways meeting last night, but I did talk to Nate Sears, and a couple of things that should be on our radar. One, there is a meeting tomorrow at the library, which is the Mill Pond.
Actually, it's here.
Oh, is it here? Oh, yeah, that's right, it's here.
Oh, glad you mentioned it.
Mill Pond
30? Is it 5:30?
Study Group.
I'm sorry, what time is it?
I'm looking at the announcement.
5?
5 o'clock here, right, Lynn? She's on the wastewater management.
Yeah. So they're looking at alternative, or having a discussion about alternatives for
Yeah, here it is.
dealing with water quality at Mill Pond.
Yeah.
But one of the other things that will be future agenda items for Shellfish and Waterways that we will probably be looking at in the future here as well is Owen Nichols doing another study on Pleasant Bay, and the management plan down there. A couple of things are going on. One, there's extensive shoaling in front of the town landing and ramp at Port Innimaket, which is an important access point for our grant holders and recreational boaters in Pleasant Bay. So much as we hate to say the word dredging,
Right.
there are potential alternatives to pinpoint things. Chatham does it all the time. We may need to look at something there in the future that could be
Maintenance.
a maintenance type of thing, or, something that's necessary in order to maintain the accessibility to all the commercial grant holders and recreational boaters in Pleasant Bay. But one of the things that's also interesting, we might be able to get some information on this weekend when we're up in Boston for the MMA, is there's a new invasive species that's starting to show up here in the Northeast of a type of crab that feeds off of the root systems of the marsh grass.
Ravenous.
And
It
it's
is ravenous.
destroying marsh grasses, which then destroy the peat layer, which then makes us even more susceptible to sea level rise. And one of the ways to combat that invasive species is to smother them, which goes to one of the things that we looked at with dredging in the past, was the side cast dredging, where you actually build up layers of dredge material, which is, sand and silt that comes off the bottom, and you basically top dress your peat layers in your marsh grass, and it smothers the predator crabs, and it allows the grass to continue to flourish. In fact, it enhances its ability to flourish. So, you get into this environmental thing about, well, dredging is bad in one sense, but if you do it a certain way, it may actually help you to sustain the viability of a marsh and stuff. So we need to look at that more, because I think Nate has a concern that we could be seeing some issues with that in Rock Harbor Creek and within the Nauset Estuary as well. So something to look at in the future, when they have a chance to look at it themselves at the committee level.
Wow.
That's not good.
No, it's not. It makes me pause to think about that, because, we have enough factors that we're
Yeah,
dealing
oh,
with.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Future agenda items, as Molly's kept us up, we have a full plate coming up in workshops. We are gonna get our policies done. Kim is like, we have got to get these wrapped up, so, yeah, we'll get those done. All right, I think the last item,
Mr. Chair, at 7:20, well, my computer says 24, the clock does not. I move we adjourn.
Second.
moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thanks.